Uh, Good evening, man. Happy New Year. How many salutations can I give in one, introduction? A few more would be my guess. Hey, so I was driving this week listening to a podcast, and the podcast is irrelevant except they were talking about North Dakota, and I've been to North Dakota one time, but as I'm listening to the podcast, I was reminded of a conversation I had with someone once where my ugly side came out. Anyone ever have that where you're like reminded of something in your past where you're like, oh, that was a really bad moment for me? I was reminded of one of those. I was talking to a couple people, and one of my dear friends' wives was telling about how her husband's dad, and I know this is convoluted, but her husband's dad had just moved to North Dakota. Well, I had just been talking to her husband, and he was in fact telling me that the dad moved to South Dakota. So what did I do? I proceeded to correct my friend's wife about where her father-in-law just moved to. Now, it would have been bad just doing that, but she's like, no, I'm pretty sure it's North Dakota. And I could have left it. You guys, I could have left it and it would have just been fine. But instead I was like, no, it's South Dakota. Like I'm some sort of authority. And I'm sitting in my car remembering this conversation where my ugly side came out, was exposed a little bit. And I just felt so embarrassed. Even though I doubt she remembers it at all. And if she does, I doubt she honestly cares. But to me, I was like, that little part of me, that brother side of me where I have to be right. I have to be like, my wife knows this too well. I correct all the time. I don't know what it is, but that's like part of just my ugly side. Anyone else have just that ugly side?
Yes.
Yeah? How many of you guys have a story? And maybe it's one that haunts you a little bit or a lot of it, but have a story of when your ugly side came out. Are you haunted by that regularly?
No, thankfully not.
Oh, man. You're a better person than I am. Tonight we're talking about a story where someone's ugly side comes out, and it's not the person you think it is. All right? So let me make that real clear. I have preached this sermon, and not this sermon specifically, but I've preached from this passage so many times in the last 12 years, I can't even count it. And this week, God was revealing something new to me in just a profound way. I found myself in a new way in this story. And so I hope you can listen with fresh ears tonight as we unpack this story. If you have a Bible, we're in John chapter 8. End of John chapter 7. Says this. It's a field trip right now. I'm serious. It's like every Sunday night, right when we get going, they're all like, we're going to rebel. We have to go potty at the same time. It's cool. Love you, Hal. Thanks, baby. John 7, verse 53, the very last verse. Can I just be honest real quick? Sorry. I don't know why they divided the Bible up the way they did, right? Because obviously when it was written, it wasn't written like John wasn't writing, okay, chapter 1 starts like this, and 2, and 7 is going to end really where 8 should begin. But for me, this makes no sense that it's 7:53. It says this, then each one went to his house, full stop, chapter 8, verse 1. But Jesus went to the Mount of Olives, right? That makes no sense. Come on. If we're going to make it a textbook, let's at least make it. I digress. At dawn, he went to the temple again, and all the people were coming to him. He sat down and began to teach them. Then the scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman caught in adultery, making her stand in the center. Teacher, they said to him, this woman was caught in the act of committing adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. So what do you say? They asked this to trap him. In order that they might have evidence to accuse him, Jesus stooped down and started writing on the ground with his finger. When they persisted in questioning him, he stood up and said to them, "The one without sin among you should be the first to throw a stone at her." Then he stooped down again and continued writing on the ground. When they heard this, they left one by one, starting with the older men. Only he was left with the woman in the center. When Jesus stood up, he said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, Lord," she answered. "Neither do I condemn you," said Jesus. "Go, and from now on, do not sin anymore." I think this is one of the most earth-shattering and beautiful pictures of Jesus' character in all of John. Because in it, we have a profound moment where he looks someone dead in the eye. She's been caught at the lowest point of her life, right? I don't know about you, but I've never been dragged out into the middle of a group of men when I was in the middle of acting on sin, and I was thrown in the middle and said, "He was just doing this." Like, that's not something that's ever happened to me, but she's in the middle of that. Jesus looks her square in the face and says, "I'm not condemning you. Go and sin no more." It's beautiful, it's profound, and I want to unpack it a little bit because there's really three things that I want us to focus on in this, because for so long in my life, I've never really been able to fully put myself into the category of this woman. And I know that sounds terrible and like really self-righteous, and I don't mean it to, because I'm not that great of a person without Jesus, like at all. I'm not saying I am a great person. I'm just saying, like, without Jesus, as bad as I am, I'd be so much worse. But all of my sin that I have, that I struggle with, really isn't external sin. It's all internal sin, right? It's like my pride. It's things like that. And so for me, it's always been hard to put myself in the category of this woman who's standing at the lowest point of her life. With that, there's three uglies that are brought out here. First of all, the Pharisees ugly. The religious ugly. That's me, okay? Let me be real honest here. In case you were wondering, that's me. I'm the Pharisee. I've got the religious ugly all over me. They set a trap. And I don't think it's that far-fetched to imagine that they're the ones who set up this whole fornication situation going on, the adultery in the first place. Like, I would imagine that they'd be the type to do that, where all of a sudden they've set it up where they're going to be in the room and they're going to bust in and drag her out, because they did this to trap Jesus. They knew where he would be, they knew what he would be doing, and they wanted to set him up. That's so jacked up. Have you guys ever done that though? Like, honestly speaking, have you ever just waited for someone to fail? And not in a loving coaching way. So for a while, I was a coordinator for a little kid soccer program. And one of the things we had to do as we were training new coaches was we would let them fail. Sounds mean. It's not. No, it is in a loving way. We would say, all right, you're running this game. It's all you. You've got this. And we would do this with enough time for them to prepare, and then they'd go and they'd run the game, and inevitably everyone's first game was just a total flop. Like a bunch of 3-year-olds running around like, we do what with the ball and the cones, and why are you wearing a hula hoop? It makes no sense. And after the class, we'd go up to the coach and we'd be like, all right, hey, so when you explain alien tag like that, you really got to make it clear that you're an alien and that they've got to kick the soccer balls at you, right? If you don't do that, then the whole point of the game is lost and the kids aren't going to get it. It's like, oh yeah, I did fail and now I know better. No, it's not that kind of fail. Like, I've waited for my brothers to fail before. Oh, I know how this is going to go. I can't wait for it. I remember one morning, I was almost graduated with high school, and my older brother was back from college for a season, and he picks up the phone. It's early to me, and he's like, "No, I'm on my way." Yeah, I'm on my way. Traffic's just really bad right now. And I was a little pissed at my brother. I'm just going to be real honest, like heart check here. I'm not perfect. I was really pissed at my brother in this moment. And he's telling his boss that he's on his way. He's already late, and he's got another 45 minutes till he gets there at least. And I knew what was going to happen. I was waiting for him to fail. That's the Pharisees ugly. There's so much pride wrapped up in there. So they trap this woman, and they bring her to Jesus. Now let's talk about her ugly for a second. Actually, back up, because it's not just that they trapped her. Okay, they caught her in the middle of adultery. Okay, last I checked, it takes 2 to fornicate. All right? Like, it takes 2 people. So if they caught her in the act, where is the guy? This is so not fair. This is ridiculous. Where's the dude? And then they go on, they tell Jesus, like, hey, the law of Moses says that if you're a woman caught in adultery, that's not what it says. It doesn't say the woman should be stoned. Right? It says they should be. They should be stoned for that act, the man and the woman. So they're bringing just the woman in front of Jesus saying, hey, look what she did. They're waiting for her to fail, and they're waiting for Jesus to fail. Now let's talk about her ugly for a second, because she's not an innocent bystander here, right? She's not innocent of this in any way. She is living in sin. It's not like you go out one day and you're walking along and you trip and you're committing adultery. That's not how this works. Okay, I've counseled a lot of people who have had extramarital intercourse, and it never starts out with, yeah, we gave each other a high five and ended up naked. Like, that's not the progression there. There's always struggling before, there's the interaction, there's struggling together, and then there's the action. So she's been living in this life. This has been a path she has been walking down. Now, I've used this analogy before. I'll use it 1,000 more times, because sin can be so much fun. Sin can be a lot of fun. But no matter how fun the sin is, it's a chocolate-covered hand grenade. Eventually, it's going to explode in your face. And that's what happens. All right, there's Pharisees ugly. There's her ugly. There's the crowd's ugly. They're picking up stones. They're ready to go. Can you imagine standing there, like, righteous anger burning through your veins? She's wrong. She's a sinner. She deserves this. Picking out your rock, right? And I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I always imagined when I was a kid, like, whenever I heard of stoning, like, oh, you pick up little rocks and you throw them like pebbles. That's not what we're talking about. They were like stones. They were bulky. They were heavy. And there's a crowd of people pissed off and angry, and they feel like they're just to be. That's ugliness right there. Mob mentality going on. And then there's Jesus is ugly. Natalie and I were watching a Netflix show, Tidying Up. Is that what it's called, Nat? Tidying Up? Anyone seen it before? No? It's on Netflix. It's amazing. Essentially, this girl who, she's a mom of 2 or something like that, wrote a book about, like, keeping your house tidy, goes into people's houses and helps them tidy up. And it's amazing because the very first episode, she opens up one of their, like, junk drawers, and everyone has a junk drawer in their house, and if you don't, then you're perfect. Because maybe it's not an actual junk drawer, or maybe it's like a junk drawer of your soul. But anyway, she opens up, see what I did there? maybe it's a closet. Yeah, whole closet. But she opens up their junk drawer, right? And there's like 8 of spades hanging out, and there's like scissors and like a bunch of papers glued together. And she's like, I love the mess. That's literally what she said. I love the mess. Like all happy and bubbly. Jesus is coming in and he's like, I love the mess. I love the mess. And there's a reason that he gets down and starts drawing in the sand. Let me give you another analogy from when I was coaching soccer with the 4-year-olds. 4-year-olds were actually my favorite to coach. But in training, we would always tell coaches, you never stand up when you're directing a student or a soccer player, especially one-on-one. You always have to get down on their level. When you're standing up, you're above them. They're looking up like, wow, that net is really, really high. That's great. Oh, there's a ball on top of it. That's cool. How do we get it down? But when you're right there in their face, when you're right there with them, it's like, oh, all right, he's on my level. He knows what's up. Jesus gets down in the dirt that she's in, both literally and metaphorically. And he inserts himself into the mess and starts drawing in the sand. Jesus is willing to get messy here. See, my whole life, I thought this story was about 2 people. I thought this story was about the woman who was thrown in front of Jesus and about Jesus, his response to her. God's been opening my eyes a little bit. Some of you guys are the Pharisee, and you've been waiting for the people in your life to stumble so that you can point it out and be like, hey, this is where you're not good enough. This isn't where you're living up to God's standard or my standard. This is where you're not enough. Some of us are total Pharisees, even with the people that we love the most in our lives. Can I tell you, it is destroying your relationships. It is destroying the people around you, and it is destroying your relationship with Jesus. Because when you do that, what you're doing is you are condemning other people while not even taking a look at what's going on inside your own heart. You're like, oh, I know what's up with you. This is where you're ugly. Meanwhile, oh, look at me. I'm perfect. I'm holy. This is why I can point it out. Some of us are Pharisees in our lives, and it's got to stop. It's got to stop. Some of us are the crowd, and we're like, yeah, I know I'm not perfect, but God's law says, so I've got this stone, and it's huge, and I'm ready to go. I'm not the one planning it, but I'll be the one joining in. Yeah, makes a lot of sense to me. It's time to start hearing a different voice. You know something in this story? The voice of the accusers is the loudest. See, some of you are literally the woman in this story. You've been caught in the lowest point of your life. You are living in the sin that is killing you. And the hardest thing is that the voice of the accusers is always going to be the loudest in our head. And we're going to be telling ourselves, this isn't fair. I imagine she's on the ground saying, this isn't fair. I wasn't alone in my sin, but now I'm alone. Jesus is always right there in the mess, though, saying, listen, they can't condemn you, and I'm not going to. John 3, Jesus was talking to Nicodemus, one of the Pharisees. He said, listen, God so loved the world that he sent his only son, that whoever should believe in him won't perish but have eternal life. He goes on to say that that he didn't come into the world. Jesus did not come into the world to condemn the world. So now he's in this moment where he is proving that. And let me tell you this, whether you're the Pharisee, the crowd, or the woman, Jesus is in your mess with you, saying, I love the mess, and he's crying out saying, I don't condemn you. I don't condemn you. Those were the words he had for the woman. Where are your accusers? Does no one condemn you? No, Lord. No one. Neither do I. And you guys want to know something beautiful here? There's something so profoundly wonderful in this moment. This woman did not ask for grace. Look at the story. She doesn't say, Jesus, forgive all the sins that I've committed. She doesn't say, Jesus, I really screwed up. I need your help here. She doesn't say, Jesus, please don't condemn me. All she says is, no one condemns me. And Jesus reaches out. He always takes the first step. That's what I'm trying to say. Jesus always takes the first step. And he extended this woman grace even though she did not deserve it and she did not ask for it. He extended the grace. Why? I'll tell you this. Whoever you are in this story, whether you're the Pharisee, the crowd, or the woman in front of Jesus, whatever place you're in, Jesus makes one thing resoundingly clear throughout Scripture. And it's quoted in 1 Peter 5:5. It says this, God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. This woman is naked and bare, literally and metaphorically, spiritually, in front of Jesus, and he extends grace. Copious amounts of grace. Because God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. So whether you're the Pharisee who for years has been condemning the people around you, entrapping them, whether you're the crowd who is cheering it on, or you're the woman standing naked in front of Jesus, when you approach him with humility and say, I am nothing. I'm laying it bare. Here is everything. I'm giving it to you, Jesus. I'm done holding on. I'm done trying to make it on my own. I'm done fighting. I'm done trying to hold on to what I thought I knew. I'm done clinging to my sin, which is slowly, sometimes quickly, killing me. We finally reach that point of saying, listen, I will never be good enough. None of my accomplishments will ever be enough. None of the good I could do could ever surmount the weight of my sin. I need you, Jesus. When we reach that point, that's where he's like, yeah, I'm all in. I've been here the whole time. Duh. Right? And it sounds so profoundly easy because it is. It is so easy, so simple, and yet it's the hardest thing to do. God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. You know, something just hit me. Maybe you're none of these people. Maybe you're not the Pharisee. Right? Because in my early years, I was a Pharisee of Pharisee, right? Like, I admitted to you guys last week that when I was 18, about to move to Africa, I said I'd never drink or get tattoos. I was hardcore Pharisee, y'all. Like, as hardcore as they could be. Like, straight edge used to be like this like really hardcore movement, right? Where like, anyway, that was me. Like I was as straight as they could be when it came to doing good. I was right there, and I totally had it wrong. But in later years, God has really softened my heart, and now I don't look at someone and judge them immediately. That comes later. So maybe you're not the Pharisee. Maybe you were. Maybe you're not now. Maybe you're not the crowd. You hate it when someone is thrown down. Maybe you are just like, oh my gosh, I feel for them, and you have so much empathy and so much grace right away. And maybe you're not the woman who is caught in their sin. Maybe some of you are the man, the other half of the fornication. Maybe some of you are still back in the room all by yourself. You didn't get caught. You didn't get dragged in front of everyone. In fact, your sin is still secret. Your sin is still your own. Your sin is still hidden, buried beneath the layers and the walls that you've created to protect it. Maybe some of you are lying to yourself. No, you do have a porn issue. Maybe some of you are tricking yourself like alcohol is an issue and you need to stop. Maybe some of you, work has become your God and your slave, and you fool yourself saying, oh, no, this is me providing for my family. Maybe some of you, grades have become everything to you. I'm not worth anything unless I have a 4.0. I'm not worth anything unless I'm top of my class. Because I fully believe that it is possible for someone to live in sin for years and never get caught. Never have a woman caught in adultery kind of moment where you're laying naked and bare in front of the world with your sin hanging out for everyone to see. I believe that some of us can live in private and sin in private, and I'm telling you tonight, it is killing you. And you need to let it go. And if they're not going to drag you out in front of Jesus naked, then it's time you step out and say, Jesus, here it is. Here's all of my sin. Here's all of my issues. Here's all of my shame. I give it to you because I know that you're the only place where I'm going to find grace. You're the only place where I'm going to find hope. You're the only place where I'm going to truly experience love and freedom from these things which have held me down for so long. But to not do that. John Owen, famous theologian, once said, be killing sin, or sin will be killing you. I'll tell you what. Natalie and I were having a conversation about our kids this week. That's not something new. We do that every day. But I said something that I think was a little jarring to her at first. I said, I'd rather our kids sin in front of us. And once I explained what I meant, she was on board. She was like, yeah, absolutely. But I would rather, oh, sweetie, that was a sad face. I would rather that girl that came out just right there, I'd rather her sin right in my face than hide it and be in secret. See, the nice thing about the Pharisees is we know right where they are. We know what their sin is. It is obvious. They are all religious and struggle with pride. They're overly condemning and overly judgy. The crowd, it's obvious. They're not after God's heart. They're after their own hearts. They're after approval of the others around them. That's pretty obvious. The woman, her sin, I think that's inherently obvious in this story. But the man who is hiding, his sin is still hidden, at least he thinks. And let me tell you, God would rather us sin in his face than try and hide it in our heart. That's why we get this allegorical story in Jonah, where he's like running from God, saying like, I can hide this from God, and then boom, a storm, and they're like, who's causing this? That's me, and the big fish swallows him, all of that. Like, God would rather us sin right there. Have it out. He would rather us be honest with where we're at. I think it's time. It's time. Not I think. I don't think this. I know this. It is time for us to give it up. No matter where we're at. No matter where we're at in this story, it is time for us to take the posture of the woman and kneel before the throne of King Jesus and say, King Jesus, I don't deserve your grace. I don't deserve your mercy, but I know that you love me and give it to me anyway. And then, hear me well, because it wasn't just, I don't condemn you. He gave that freely, but then he says this, and this is so profoundly important for us that we cannot leave without it. He doesn't just not condemn her. He doesn't just extend her grace, but then he says, go and sin no more. Leave this place changed. Don't stay the same. Don't walk in the same habits. Don't walk in the same sin. Don't walk in the same rebellion that you were living in. You got to get up. You got to move on. You got to move past it. And you know what he's really saying there? He's not telling her to never sin again, although that would be ideal. What he's really saying is it's time for you to start living for something other than yourself. It's time for you to start living for me. That's what he's really telling her. That's what he's really telling us. That's why as a church, our hope is that all of us would love the city and live the gospel, and that is so important and paramount, that we would live the gospel, not just believe the gospel, not just hope it's true, but that we would actually live it out. That the same grace that Jesus gave us, we would give to others. That the same love he showed to us, we would do for others. That it wouldn't be something cool that we do on a Sunday night, but that it would capture all of our lives. Jesus, down in her mess, looks at her square in the face and says, I love you. And it's okay that you're broken, but it's not okay for you to stay broken. And tonight, I'm telling all of us, it is okay that we're broken. It is okay that we are broken. It is okay that we have messed up. It is okay that we have sin in our lives. It is okay that we are imperfect people gathered in front of the throne of King Jesus. But it is not okay for us to stay broken, shattered, sinning people. It's time to pick up our stuff and move forward. See what I did there? David, the second king of Israel, got caught in adultery. Just like this woman. Just like all of us, if you really think about it. And he was called out. This was his response. He said this, God, give me mercy from your fountain of forgiveness. I know your abundant love is enough to wash away my guilt because your compassion is so great. Take away this shameful guilt of sin. Forgive the full extent of my rebellious ways and erase this deep stain on my conscience. For I'm so ashamed. I feel such pain and anguish within me. I can't get away from the sting of my sin against you, Lord. Everything I did right in front of you, for you saw it all. Against you and you above all have I sinned. Everything you say to me is infallibly true, and your judgment conquers me. Lord, I have been a sinner from birth, and from the moment my mother conceived me. I know that you delight to set your truth deep in my spirit, so come into the hidden places of my heart and teach me wisdom. Purify my conscience. Make this leper clean again. Wash me in your love until I am pure in heart. Satisfy me in your sweetness, and my song of joy will return. The places within me you have crushed will rejoice in your healing touch. Hide my sins from your face. Erase all my guilt by your saving grace. Create a new, clean heart within me. Fill me with pure thoughts and holy desires ready to please you. May you never reject me. May you never take from me your sacred spirit. Let my passion for life be restored, tasting joy in every breakthrough you bring to me. Hold me close to you with a willing spirit that obeys whatever you say. Then I can show to other guilty ones how loving and merciful you are. They will find their way back home to you, knowing that you will forgive them. Oh God, my saving God, deliver me fully from every sin, even the sin that brought blood guilt. Then my heart will once again be thrilled to sing the passionate songs of joy and deliverance. Lord God, unlock my heart, unlock my lips, and I will overcome with my joyous praise. For the source of your pleasure is not in my performance or the sacrifices I might offer to you. The fountain of your pleasure is found in the sacrifice of my shattered heart before you. Humbleness, people. You will not despise my tenderness as I humbly bow down at your feet. Because of your favor, Zion, do what is good for her. Be the protecting wall around Jerusalem. And when we are fully restored, you will rejoice and take delight in every offering of our lives as we bring our sacrifices of righteousness before you in love. Wherever you're at, whatever's going on, whatever sin or shame, whatever regret you are clinging to, it's time to let it go. It's time to bring it to the feet of King Jesus and say it's yours. And from there you can take up his righteousness. And you can walk in joy. And you can walk in song. And you can walk in praise. Singing how great your love is that you pursued me. That you forgave me. That you knew me and did not condemn me. Praise is always the response of what Jesus has done in our lives. I sense that some of us in this room are ready to sing out to him saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I also feel like some of us still have that secret sin buried in our hearts. That we're unwilling to let it go, unwilling to bring it to the feet of King Jesus. And if that's you, if you're in that place of pride, unwilling to bring it to Jesus, I think it's better. And I love you with all my heart, so don't hear this as condemnation for me. But I think it might be better if you work that out first before coming to his throne singing praise. I think it might be better for you in the long run if we approach Jesus in praise from a place of humility rather than from a place of hiding our sin. And so if that's you, if you're still hiding that sin, if you're still hiding that shame and that regret, you need to deal with that. And there's people in this place tonight who want to pray with you, who would love to talk through it with you. If you're not sure who those people are, ask the person next to you. Say, I need to pray with someone. Who do I go talk to? Tell you what, Chris Johnson back here, she would love to talk with you. She would love to pray with you. Ryan Racer right here up front, he would love to talk to you. He would love to pray with you. Natalie, I'm volunteering you because I know your heart. She would love to talk to you. She would love to pray with you. Do not leave this place, though. Do not leave this place without hearing the words, I don't condemn you. Go and sin no more. Do not leave this place without hearing those words in your life. Jesus, we love you, and I thank you that you weren't content to stay in heaven, but you had to enter the mess because you love the mess. You love our brokenness. Because in our brokenness, in our imperfection, your power is made perfect. It is made evident. It is made realized. Jesus, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for not condemning us. For seeing our shame, for seeing our guilt, for seeing our sin, and saying, I do not condemn you. And no one else has the authority. No one else has the power. No one else has the ability. And Jesus, I pray that tonight we would not stay the same, that we would be forever changed because of the encounter with your grace that we've had. And so, Jesus, we're going out singing joyfully, praising hard, worshiping you, thanking you for all that you've done and all that you continue to do. Because that statement, I do not condemn you, that's going to echo throughout eternity in our hearts. That even when we fail, we can turn back and look to you and say, Lord, most elegant prayer in Scripture, Lord, help. You're going to look at us and say, I don't condemn you. Go and sin no more. Live for me. Live for me. You say, live for me. Jesus, we're done living in the secret with the walls we've put up to try and protect our secret pet sin. Tonight, like the woman, we stand spiritually naked in front of you, saying, here it is, Lord, here's everything. Be present as we confront ourselves and give it to you. Because you are better. You're more beautiful. And unlike the hand grenade we're consuming, you only lead to life. Because you are life itself. Jesus, we love you. We need you, and it's in your name we pray. Amen.